Hi YouTube, AC Dodd here again, and I just thought I'd do a little video. I was in the process of rebushing a bunch of primary gears, and it occurred to me I had enough here to do a little video on the Overdrive drop gears that were available from the factory. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Okay, so drop gears. Here we have a standard set of drop gears from a classic Mini A+. Okay, so this is the A+ teeth set, and you're probably all wondering, Overdrive drop gears, well, what's that all about? Well, at the factory there were different gears produced depending on the application. Now, just to clear things up, the Overdrive drop gears don't exist on the Mini range, i.e. what I mean by that is the factory never produced them. So the Overdrive gears were exclusively from the Metro production. So if you've only spent all your life taking apart Mini gearboxes, for example, Mini engines, then you won't have seen these before. The only place you would have seen these is if somebody has replaced that gearbox in the life of the car, and then perhaps put a set of these on the engine, or indeed replace the whole engine and gearbox, and with a set from a Metro that have the Overdrive drops on. So with that out of the way, if you have Overdrive drops, they've come from a Metro. Anyway, moving forward, what's seen here is nothing special. This is all the standard drop gear set. Okay, so on the A+, that consists of a 29 tooth primary gear, the standard 37 tooth idler, which incidentally is the same idler gear on both the standard 1:1 ratio set, and this idler gear is also the same one that's used on the Overdrive drop gear set. Okay, so if you have one of these, then it meshes with both types of gear. So that's a real bonus if you've only just got a primary or you've just got the input. And this here is the input gear. Okay, so that's the input gear, again standard 29 tooth. Okay, so that's an input gear off a normal A+ drop gear set. So when you put these together, you get that drives that drives that, and then you got 29 teeth here, 29 teeth here, and that produces a 1:1 ratio. Okay, so where do we get these extra gears from, and what do they look like? So these are the Overdrive gears. Okay, that is the idler gear 37 tooth that we just showed previously with the standard gears. The first thing is, how do you identify the difference between the gears? Well, the first thing you'll notice is that has a little mark around the center of the teeth. Okay, now if I put the standard one next to it, you'll see the standard one doesn't have the mark. Okay, so when you've got that mark in the teeth there, we can see that is telling us it's different. And the reason why it's different is because this has 30 teeth on it, whereas the standard one only has 29. So if we put a mesh 30 teeth with our standard 29 tooth gear here, we get a slight overdrive ratio, and in this case that becomes 0.9655 to 1 overdrive. So if we look at this gear, we will see that it's not actually a 29 tooth gear, it's a 28 tooth gear. The sharp-eyed would notice this one's also got some damage, but for the purposes of demonstration this is absolutely fine. So this is a 28 tooth input gear, and the identification is on the shoulder there, that line. If we compare it to standard gear, you'll see that the standard gear has no markings. So if we take this 28 tooth gear and a 30 tooth primary and we mesh that together, we get an even higher ratio, and this becomes 0.9333 recurring to 1 ratio. and that gives us a useful overdrive. So what does it all mean? Well, if we have a combination where we've got 29 tooth and 29 teeth on the input gear, so let's say primary and let's say input, divide one into the other, the answer is 1 to 1. Okay, so that basically means that one turn of the engine is one turn of the... So what happens if I just want to change 1 or 2 gears or 1 gear rather than the whole lot? Well, that's the beauty of these sets, is you can mix and match. So you can put the primary gear, you can change, so you can put 30 teeth and leave the 29 input, and therefore that will equal 0.966 recurring to 1. So that gives us an overdrive figure. The next combination we could have is we could just change the input gear. So that combination would be our normal primary gear, 29, and then 28 teeth, okay? And that would equal 0.9655 to 1. And of course the final combination would be 28 tooth input over 30 tooth primary, and that would equal 0.9333 recurring to 1. Again, overdrive, but that gives us the highest ratio. So what does all that mean? Well, I'll make it simple for you. If you've got a final drive ratio in your gearbox of 3.44 to 1, and you've got a 1 to 1 drop gear ratio, then of course the effective ratio of the final drive with the 1 to 1 drop gears is still 3.44 to 1. But what happens if we want to increase that ratio, and perhaps we don't, you know, we haven't got a next ratio up and we want high gearing? So let's say we wanted a 3.21 final drive ratio and we had a 3.44 Cranwell and pinion. Well, that's easy with these drop gears, because all we can do, multiply that by 0.9333, and we get 3.21. So what that basically means is the 3.44 Cranwell and pinion, when you overdrive that gearbox, effectively becomes the same as a 3.21. So it gives you less RPM at the engine for the same road speed. So this is a good way of effectively increasing the ratio of your gearbox, you know, when you actually looking for a drop in RPM when you're cruising on the motorway, for example. But more interestingly than that, what happens if, say, you had a 3.44 final drive and 3.21 was too high and 3.44 was too low? Well, the beauty about the overdrive drop gears is you can use just one of them. So for example, if we go back to our 3.44 version, and then we multiply it by a new ratio, what do we get? Well, in this case, what we've done is we fitted a 28 tooth input onto the gearbox and left the standard primary gear and obviously meshing with the standard idler gear. So that gives us a 0.9655 overdrive. 3.44 times 0.9655, and that gives us a ratio of 3.32 to 1. And what that basically means is these combinations of gears can give us final drive equivalents that weren't available before. So effectively you can get, instead of 3.44, and then the next one being 3.21, you've now got the option to split that and have 3.32. And that's the beauty of the Overdrive drop gears. Now, if you wanted to build yourself a high-speed cruiser, so you had a big torque engine and you wanted to go down the motorway at speed, well, perhaps you'd fit a 2.95 Cranwell and pinion, but actually maybe your engine was a big engine, 1380, and you might be able to pull more gearing. Well, in this case, I would suggest that it may be possible to perhaps pull a 2.85 to 1. And this is the beauty of the drop gear set. So now we could use just either change the primary gear for a 30 tooth. So let's do the calculation. So if we put a 30 tooth primary on, we have a 29 tooth input, 30 tooth primary, yeah, and we multiply that by 2.95. So that will give us 2.8516 to 1. Okay, so that gives us an easy way of just tweaking our ratios to give us even higher gearing. Okay, now if you was to put the whole lot on the 2.95, well, funnily enough, it takes it to 2.76 to 1. Okay, now it's very easy to overgear with this combination, because you can get gear ratios as high as 2.57 to 1. But trust me, I've tried it, you won't have enough torque out of an A series to pull that unless it's a massive one. So I would suggest that you keep your gearing combinations to 2.76 or lower, numerically higher. Okay, so that's a good combination. 2.95 running to 2.85 is a fairly common combination by just running a 30 tooth primary. You can also do it the other way by just changing the input gear, which will give you virtually the same. I think it comes to 2.84, something like 2.845 or something to 1. But you can mess around with the maths yourselves. Well, hopefully you can see the benefit of these economy, sometimes called, and overdrive drop gears. They were called economy because they were typically fitted into the economy metro engines. So some engines would have a 3/4 diff, and both of these fitted to take it up to effectively a 3.2, and then they would also use the 2-ring gear set in the gearbox to give a wide ratio to soak up the very mild characteristics, a very wide torque band of the engines that these were fitted to. So yeah, overdrive drop gears are one of those things that is often overlooked, often forgotten about in builds, and sometimes I've seen them in an engine and the person thinks they've got a certain final drive, whereas in actual fact they're using overdrive gears, so it's actually higher than they thought. So it's one of those things, if you want to get the performance that you want out of your car, you need to understand these, so we can, so you can understand the effect on the gearing and obviously the requirements from the engine. Hope you found that useful. Just a couple of more things before I sign off. Some of you may be wondering why Rover, in their infinite wisdom, would actually go out their way to make these things. Well, there's been many theories, but the one I like to think about is the fact is, if you put overdrive drops on the input side of the gearbox, this actually reduces the torque going through the gearbox by, nearly 7%. So in that case, knowing as I do, back in the day, Rover were having quite a lot of problems with gearboxes in metros at that time. So I wouldn't put it past them that they actually did that to try and reduce the torque loading that they were seeing in these cars, and trying to make the gearboxes more reliable. Moving on from that, other people will tell you that some of these were found in MPI minis. I did a run of 20 years building gearboxes for ML Motorsport. I saw literally hundreds of them. I've had MPI gearboxes from the 3 years of production that they were, well, 40 years nearly of production, and on none of them did I see these economy gears or the wide ratio gear sets. They all had the standard 3.65 to 1 first gear, single ring ID gear set with a 2.76 final drive. Where these, I think, crept in is because the MPIs had quite a terrible time with gearboxes, and a lot of people were swapping them out. So if anybody's got any better information or can prove that the factory fitted it, then I'm all open to that. But in reality, I've never seen one. And people who've shown me gearboxes have usually, the gearbox that has them on has got evidence of it's been taken apart, so it wasn't a factory original. Now, I've certainly had gearboxes on brand new cars with less than 800 miles on my bench for rebuild, so I know from experience that these certainly weren't fitted to minis, the ones I looked at. So, as I say, happy to be told otherwise if anyone has got factory evidence or drawings to the which proves that. But I'm sticking to the fact that these were solely for the Austin Metro. Anyway, with that all said, it matters not, because you can fit them to any A+ configuration, so it doesn't matter now. A couple of things to note: don't overgear your combination by trying to run, say, like a 276 final drive, and these 2.57, you won't have enough torque unless you've got supercharge or turbocharging, and then even then it will massively reduce your acceleration with that high gearing. So as I said, use this video for evidence and information, and above all, enjoy driving the cars. Anyway, as ever, speak to you soon. Thank you very much.